today. And I hope to crave your attention as I go through the sermon today. A roadmap of prophecy. This roadmap of prophecy is only an appetizer and not a main course meal. I will leave the main course meal for Brother Hopton when he comes in. But that we'll go through this appetizer carefully. Brothers and sisters, if people who lived in other time frames, in other ages, could come back today, what do you think they would call this age we live in now? They would probably call it the age of anxiety, the age of uncertainty. And I do hear it ever so often in the chores and routines of life, whether it be a nursing facility, a hospital, or at the workplace. We all at different times feel disoriented, frustrated, and perhaps even frightened. It's rather like finding yourself lost in a strange city, a strange place. So what we need is a roadmap to show us where we are, what's going on, and what will happen next. Whether you call the modern version the GPS, or you use the old map, like I oftentimes do. Today in this short presentation, I want to show you that there is such a map. And that this map has been around for quite a long time. And it has stood the test of time. And while some may question it, it's proved to be accurate. Come on in, Brother Andy. The roadmap is Bible prophecy to which I am referring to. Bible prophecy. And like any map or GPS, you have to learn how to read it and understand its symbols. The roadmap of prophecy shows the way to a positive future that will be very different to what most outside these doors expect. The trends you see and the noise, the trend you see and the news you hear in the world today are not simply isolated events without a cause. What we are seeing today are the final stages of a plan that's been unfolding for nearly 6,000 years.
Amen.
That plan is outlined in the Bible, especially in the 1/3 of the book that's dedicated to explaining prophecy.
Yes.
That plan is leading us step by step toward the most important event in all history and the solution to all the problems that perplex us today. Human futurists, or so-called creative thinkers, speculate and speak with uncertainty about the future. Bible prophecy isn't speculation. It's certain. It is sure. Take a look at any ordinary roadmap or even some GPS. Usually, there's a key or a legend printed on the map that explains what the symbols used on the map means. Now, obviously, you cannot decide for yourself what these symbols mean, or the map becomes useless. But unfortunately, that's the way some people, including some who have studied for years, interpret prophecy. It's not surprising then that they come up with some bizarre ideas and end up hopelessly confused. Like a roadmap, the Bible has its own sets of symbols. And you have to let the Bible interpret these symbols. Once you do, you will find you have a reliable guide. You will see that there are some rough spots coming, but you'll also understand the overall course of world events. Let's examine some of these prophecies. We could call them major road signs outlining our personal futures. While the Bible doesn't foretell each and every detail of future history, it does outline major events to come. One of the most detailed books of prophecy is the Old Testament book of Daniel. Daniel lived about 2,630 years ago, 2,630 years ago, at a very critical time in human history. Through Daniel, God revealed a sequence of events outlining the course of human history, right down to the time of the end, our time today. Those who truly understand the roadmap will be sobered, but still optimistic in the face of events, because they realize that dangerous events indicated on our prophecy map must go by or come to pass before we see the solution to man's problems and sufferings. The roadmap of prophecy has a number of major milestones. The first major milestone on the prophetic map is found in Daniel chapter 2. The Babylonian emperor Nebuchadnezzar has a dream in which he sees a strange image. At the end of his vision or dream, the strange image is struck on its feet and toes by a cut stone that grows to fill the earth. God here showed how eventually his own kingdom would replace all human governments at a date that was then far into the future. This date, as we will shortly see, now lies just ahead of us. We find the next major milestone on our roadmap in the 7th chapter of Daniel, where chapter 2 provided a general outline, chapter 7 describes the national characteristics of the world-ruling empires or territories, making plain which nations God was referring to. In the 7th chapter, Daniel sees four strange animals. A winged lion, a bear, a four-headed leopard, and a beast that was unlike anything he had ever seen. He describes this fourth wild animal in verse 7. The appearance of the wild beasts matched their national or territorial characteristics. In the 11th chapter of Daniel, God gives us a close-up of an important part of the map, explaining in precise detail the progression of history in the Middle East. Beginning with the Babylonian rulers of Daniel's time, it continues with the Persian rulers and into the Greco-Macedonian Empire of Alexander the Great. Verses 4 and 5 show that following Alexander's unexpected death, perhaps from being poisoned in 323 BC, his kingdom was to be carved up into 4 entities, each ruled by one of his 4 generals. The next verses of Daniel 11 describes the final emergence of the 4th beast, the Roman Empire and its successors. God, through Daniel, takes the prophetic roadmap all the way to our day, today, our time.
Yes, sir.
The last verses of Daniel 11 and all of Daniel 12 are yet to be fulfilled in our time.
Yes, sir.
But Daniel wasn't given all the details. At the end of his writing, Daniel is told that other information would be revealed in our time now. Note carefully when you read verses 4, 8, 9, and 13 of Daniel 12. Note those 4 verses carefully. As most of you know, my empathy and admiration for Daniel runs very, very deep. Now let's move on to another book of prophecy, the Apocalypse, or Book of Revelation, written by John. We find in the 13th and 17th chapters of that book more details about what was first revealed in Daniel chapter 7. In the first 2 verses of Revelation 13, our prophetical roadmap clarifies or simplifies Daniel's 4th kingdom as it will soon appear in our day and age. And I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his head a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. Remember how the characteristics of the animal in Daniel 7 represented their national traits. Chapter 13 of Revelation shows that the end-time appearance of this wild beast, that is, the final resurrection of the Holy Roman Empire, will possess all the traits, characteristics of all the previous animals. Chapter 17 of Revelation explains how that final resurrection of the Roman Empire will be an alliance of 10 nations or groups of nations bound together by a religion that controls the political union.
Yes.
While these nations will be unstable and won't last long, they'll be held together long enough to threaten the survival of just about everything on this planet.
Yes.
Folks, today, for your information, this alliance contains 28 member countries or dominions.
Yes.
28.
That's right.
Britain, as you know, is still searching for Brexit. It hasn't happened officially yet. For now, whether it be 27 or 28 countries, this Treaty of Rome aka the European Union, has come a long way from its original 6 countries of 1957. Again, be aware, the alliance of political union is 10 nations or groups. But again, those who know and understand God's prophetic roadmap have real hope, because they know both how to escape the horror and what sudden turning events will come next.
Yes.
To complete the picture, we must look to the final benchmark of our prophetic roadmap. Church, we know that God takes no pleasure in these terrifying events. As part of his overall plan, he must allow man to completely demonstrate his own inability to rule before Jesus Christ returns to set up God's perfect government right here on earth.
Yes, sir.
We find our final major road signs in 3 parallel accounts, each recording what Jesus told his disciples on the Mount of Olives. Those accounts are found in Matthew chapter 24, Mark chapter 13, and Luke 21.
Yes.
Each contributes a special insight about this final roadmap.
Yes.
But we'll, however, just concentrate on Matthew 24. We see in verse 3 that the disciples specifically wanted to know from Jesus Christ, what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Yes.
Jesus then explained that false religion, wars, famines, pestilences, including viruses and pandemics,
Yes.
would bring widespread death in the end time and would precede or occur before his coming.
Amen.
As most are aware, verses 5 through 7 of Matthew 24, that it directly corresponds to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse
Yes.
mentioned in Revelation chapter 6.
Yes.
These symbolic figures trace the broad trends at the end of this age. Continuing in Matthew 24, we see another sign of the end time in verse 14. It says that this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a what? As a witness. As a witness to all nations. Then shall the end come.
Yes.
As a witness, underscore. That prophecy is being fulfilled right now, today, wherever the body of Christ holds Sabbath worship. You are hearing the same true gospel of Jesus Christ, and there is more to come in today's sermon presentation by Brother Oakton. Notice what follows in verses 21 and 22. For then there will be great tribulations, such as has not been seen since the beginning of the world until this time. No, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. Saved alive.
That's right.
But there is good news.
Yes.
There is.
Yes.
Because it says, for the elect's sake, God's own people, those days will be shortened.
Yes.
Yes, God leaves us with great hope.
Amen.
Our prophetic roadmap ends in verses 30 and 31, where we see Jesus Christ returning in great power
Yes.
to restore, and I underline, underscore, restore
Yes.
the government of God to this earth.
Yes.
It is a time in the near future when the end will come to the inhumanity we see expressed around us every day,
Yes.
and the setting up of a just, fair, stable, and secure way of life for all nations and people. My brothers and my sisters, stay abreast of your prophetic roadmap or your GPS, holding fast to the faith which was once for all delivered to the saints.
Yes.